Hi, everybody, and welcome to the KC CHIROPulse Podcast, brought to you by Kats Consultants, helping chiropractors keep their pulse on the profession. I'm Dr. Michael Perusich. I'm joined in the studios today with my good friend, Dr. Troy Fox. Troy, it's good to see you again. How are you?
What's up? What's up? I'm doing really good today. I'm excited to talk to everyone today. What a beautiful day out, starting to warm up.
Yeah, gosh, finally. We're finally starting to, at least we can see spring on the calendar, right?
Exactly.
Okay, Troy, you're the one that always gets the emails. So what are people
Yeah.
asking about this week?
So let me look at my email here real quick. So the question was this week, and I thought this was really interesting, was what are some of the current trends that we're seeing in chiropractic, and how are those going to affect us down the road in the next few years? That is a deep, big, broad topic, but we'll try to keep it kind of
That's
narrowed
huge.
down. Oh yeah.
How many hours do we have for this?
Well, yeah, this is an 8-hour class, and we're gonna try to give you a couple highlights in 20 minutes that you could use today. Yeah,
This is bad piece of meat. The more we chew it, the bigger it's going to get. But
exactly.
it's actually an interesting conversation because the pandemic has obviously caused us to have to pivot in our businesses. We're doing new things like all the cleaning procedures, the safety procedures. We're marketing different. You're probably wearing masks. You've got touchless payment systems, and you may have plexiglass up now at the front counter. It's just there's so many things we had to just figure out overnight and pivot to really keep our businesses going. And luckily in the chiropractic profession, I think at least what I see with our members um, have really done well. The pivot turned out to be a positive in the long run. But I think there are some continued changes to happen. And when we look at the future, when we look at the crystal ball, if you will, of just small business, there's a lot of interesting things happening out there. There's a lot of interesting statistics that I think point to some continued changes that we're going to see in the chiropractic profession.
Right. So don't tease me. What? Give me one here.
Well, I think one interesting thing to look at, and me, I like to look at just business trends and forecasting in general.
You're a numbers guy, so
I
that's
am a
why I'm
numbers guy.
excited.
Yeah.
When you start talking statistics, I get excited because I know that it's going to be something that I can relate to my practice.
Well, and so here's one interesting thing. 66% of employees are going to continue working at home long after the pandemic is done. And in fact,
wow.
a lot of the gurus in economic forecasting suggest that 66% number or close to that might be permanent. Okay, so
wow.
let's just pick that apart for a minute. So what does that mean? Well, from just a basic economic standpoint, that means there's going to be probably, especially in the bigger cities, a big glut of office space. So as a chiropractor, if you're looking to maybe expand your clinic a little bit or move into a new area, there may be some great opportunities to find some amazing space that maybe a couple of years ago you couldn't afford or couldn't think about being in that high end of an area maybe. Because I think office space is going to become fairly cheap coming up in the future. So that's one thing. But here's another thing that maybe affects our patients. If they're going to be working at home, think about the chiropractic schedule. What are the traditional, at least in the old guard, what are the traditional busy times of the day? Well, people want to come in and see you before they go to work, or they want to come in and see you over lunch, or they want to see you on the way home.
Right.
Well, they're not going out for lunch anymore because they're working at home, and they're not coming home from work because they're already home. So does that shift your patient schedule during the day? I think it does, at least for some people. I think you may see a totally different kind of traditional schedule than we've seen in the past.
I think it'll shift your demographic as well, because we already know that people are only going to drive so far to those chiropractic appointments, and especially in larger cities. And so it may change your demographic. Well, you may be saying to yourself, oh no, my demographic has changed. I'm going to lose some patients. I see it as an opportunity
Mhm.
that you've got a whole new demographic around the area where you're at, because people may actually, people may have worked close to your office and come to see you,
Yep.
but they may live way over here, or you may have other people that drove way over there to work and they live closer. So I think there's some opportunities with proper marketing to reach new folks as a result of these changes as well.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. And think about, parents may have actually a little bit more disposable time on their hands. So
Hmm.
if they're at home and the kids are home, even if they're back in school, the kids are going to be home in the afternoon when they get off of school. Parents may be able to bring their kids in more often. So that
Right.
may open up more afternoons for family-based appointments where maybe you're seeing 4 or 5 people in an entire family, just one right after the other at the end of the day. I mean, talk about a practice builder. That's huge.
Right. So what do you think about the whole schedule issue? Because as chiropractors, a lot of us have been very rigid over the years that we start at 7 a.m., we finish at 5:30, we're closed on Thursday. How do you see the schedule going over the next few years with people being on different schedules or flexible schedules now? How do you see that working?
Well, I'm going to throw out an F word to you regarding that, and that is flexibility. It's not what you thought I
Hmm.
was going to say. It's flexibility, and
Yeah.
we're already seeing this. We're seeing more and more practices create more flexibility into their schedule, into their work week, into their patient times. I'll give you a great example. I know of a practice. Um, this doctor's in a little bit smaller town, but they
Hmm.
have moved and shifted to seeing patients on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, of all things. They're closed the rest of the week, and they see more patients in those, it's 2.5 days. They see more patients in those 2.5 days than a lot of doctors see all week. And it's
Right.
total flexibility. So,
Yeah.
and we're seeing other shifts like that too.
Yeah, one of the other things that I've seen from a trend standpoint that hasn't really caught on big yet, but I do see us heading this direction is, and there's a couple of components to it. One, having your schedule be a little more spread out. And,
Hmm.
and I know that sometimes people go, well, I want my private time or my free time as well. I think that you have to be regimented about how you do it. But here's the other component that ties into it. You're thinking to yourself, okay, well, if I'm going to be available 12 hours a day, I don't really want to pay staff to be there 12 hours a day. And unfortunately, uh, for staff, I think things have changed as well, to where a lot of times, like you talked about, we have touchless check-in, we're able to touchless pay,
Right.
and we're also, we see docs now going, hey, text me to set up an appointment, or
Yep.
get on my app to set up an appointment. And so we're seeing a reduction in the number of staff needed, to where you can spread your schedule out a little bit without increased cost, but you give increased availability to patients that now have a different schedule. And that's really what I call the concierge model of practice.
And I think you're right. I think that is going to become more prevalent. I think you're going to see um, downsizing from what we used to be. And I don't mean downsizing necessarily with staff and that kind of thing, but I think becoming more efficient,
Hmm.
and in order to maintain social distancing, I think you may be opening up the number of hours in the week that you schedule patients, but creating more flexibility. And you go back to
Right.
changing work schedules. If patients aren't coming to see you on their way home from work, they may want to see you before they start work in the mornings, before the kids even get up, and those kind of things. So maybe you see a patient at 7 a.m. or even 6:30 a.m.
Hmm.
And in order to create more capacity in your clinic, I think you're going to have to really start to get creative like that. And it's funny, as we start to see those practices that are latching onto that,
Hmm.
their profitability is just going through the roof. They're
Yeah.
becoming hugely profitable. We're starting to see some practices take consideration into taking a part-time employee, for example, to do
Hmm.
insurance and collections, but have them do it from home because they
Hmm.
can dial in remote to the system. dial in. That's an old term.
Yeah,
um, but but
dial in.
but they can be VPN into your system.
Right,
There's all these different flexibilities that change things, and so you think about having that one staff person no longer in the building and now they're at home. Does that
right.
change the amount of square footage you need? So now
Yeah,
you cut down on rent and those kind of things. So that's what I'm talking
right.
about when we talk about profitability.
Yeah, well, return on investment is important,
It's
and what
huge.
what we also see, which if you're looking for it, you can find it sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes you see docs that are looking for just a slot. They're looking, and I had somebody approach me at one point and say, "Hey, we're putting in a new clinic. We're pretty close to where you're at. Would you be interested in just having a slot so they could keep their clinic open for more hours? They could still service more patients and have the availability. So it doesn't all have to come down to one doctor sometimes.
Right.
Sometimes you have the availability to say, hey, we're going to open this up a little bit broader and we're going to allow you, it's kind of, I make it, I think of it akin sometimes to some of the salons that have people that are filling chairs.
Right.
Either they're paying a fee to be there or they're going to give you a percentage, and you're able to actually get a bigger return on investment on your property, and you add a benefit to patients, which in my estimation also keeps patients at your practice because they're going, I've got so much flexibility, why would I ever leave?
Yeah, exactly. And there's all kinds of doctors out there right now who want to pick up some extra hours and some extra
Hmm.
money just as an associate doctor, and they want
Yeah.
to come in and work an afternoon or a couple of evenings. We know of one of our members who Tuesday, and I think it's Tuesday and Thursday evenings. The owner goes home at 5, but he's got
Yeah.
another doctor that comes in from 5 to 7. And
Yeah.
now he's just increased his capacity by 4 hours every week. That's 16 hours a month. I mean, do the math on a on
Oh
a
yeah.
on a average cost collection visit average. You're making some serious more extra dollars, which just increases your profitability even more.
Yeah,
So
and I think that's a really great concept, and sometimes we as chiropractors are a little bit resistant to that, thinking, well, we're not going to make as much money if I have another doctor in there. But the truth of the matter is, if you allow availability for your schedule to be more open, and you add that extra couple of hours, you may not make as much during that amount of time, but look at the benefit you give to patients and look at the name that you give for your clinic. I
yeah,
think it's awesome when you set things up that way and allow that availability.
yeah, and I think one of the kind of to piggyback on that, I think one of the trends we're going to see over the next few years is a return to profitability as
Hmm.
opposed to growth. So,
Yeah.
like you and I talk about a lot, I think that really takes us way away from that old new patient model of
Right.
running a practice into how do I grow a practice and create some flexibility around it, and at the same time improve my profitability. I don't have to be the biggest clinic in town. I don't have to
Right.
have 9 locations. I just have to be
Right.
profitable. And it's interesting how just looking at profit compared to growth, and again, you and I've talked about this many times, growth requires a lot of capital behind it. It
Hmm.
requires an investment to be put behind it. But when you just look at pure profitability, you're able to actually reduce your costs, and you can have a smaller clinic that's more profitable than a lot of the big clinics are. So
Hmm.
don't get sucked into the idea of grow, 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 because that's not the trend right now. And I think if you put yourself in that spot, you put yourself in a dangerous position. You have any kind of little glitch, any
Hmm.
kind of tightening up of pandemic rules or anything like that, and it could choke you real fast.
Yeah, well, we see with patients as well, they're driving some of this. It's not just all
Absolutely.
us, but if you're listening to your patients, they're not just coming in for the once a month adjustment or the I'm going to get adjusted when my back hurts kind of thing. You have patients coming in asking you about all kinds of different treatment modalities now. I get some really complex nutritional questions,
Oh
and
yeah.
so if you love the ones you're with, I think that was a verse in a song, right?
Yeah, I
Love
think
the
so.
ones you're with. If you love the ones you're with, What I mean is you take care of the folks that are already in your practice. They actually desire more than just an adjustment. And if you are constantly pushing growth, 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 it makes it really hard to take a step back and look at the whole person, which is something that we preach as chiropractors. We want people to be healthy and we want their whole body, to be taken care of. But yet a lot of times we get to putting our heads down and just adjusting this patient, adjusting that patient, out the door, out the door. And somebody says, hey, what about such and such nutrition? And it goes in one ear and out the other. And you really don't even take the opportunity to stop and talk to that patient about something that may be life-changing for them. So
Yep.
I think the smaller practice with more return on investment and not chasing new patients all the time is a huge trend for the future.
Well, it is, and you touched on something in there that really is a big trend since the pandemic's hit, and again, is going to continue on far into the future, and that's patients, consumers in general, but our patients are looking to have a relationship with their doctor. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't mean to date you or something like that, but they want to have a relationship. It's not about just outcomes. And
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, that new patient model worked great. And it was really just about outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as you got good outcomes for people, people would refer other people in. It doesn't work
Right.
that way today. Since the pandemic has happened, people want compassion, they want empathy, they want an experience in the clinic. So that
Mm-hmm.
that whole Disney experience idea that we've preached for years
Right.
really comes into play now. And people are looking for companies now that actually have core values and show that they back them up. Companies who have strong community mindedness to them. That's what consumers are looking for right now. And if you're a big multi-location practice, not that you can't do it, it's just
Mm-hmm.
harder to do, especially when you draw it back to return on investment and profitability. Yeah, I think we're going to see a big shift to a different kind of practice born out of this pandemic, and I think it's going to continue for many years.
Yeah, and I think the folks that we're really talking to is not somebody that has a large practice that is just firing on all cylinders right now. Obviously, they're doing something right.
Sure.
What we're talking about is those of you that are trying to either expand your practice, go to that next level in practice. There's really a lot of things you can do without having to get caught up in that new patient model, chasing new patients all the time. And we talked a little bit just a few minutes before we even got on the podcast today. We talked a little bit about return on investment and profitability in practice, and I think that's really one of the two things that all of us want. The other one is enjoyment. We want
Yeah.
to enjoy what we do, and if you are running in circles chasing your tail, it's really hard to enjoy what you're doing. Profitability will often put a smile on your face, and you'll start enjoying what you do in practice.
Amen. And that's probably a great place to even end this conversation, because profitability and enjoyment are so coupled together. And Trey and I both can tell you, because we both have had big practices,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a lot of stress that goes behind it. And
Yeah.
it's not always, it's big, but the investment that you're constantly putting back into it, that return on investment, which leads to profitability, isn't always there the way you want it to be. So
Oh yeah.
the grass is not always greener.
It. That's exactly what I was just going to say. The grass is not always greener. There were people over the years that have come to both of us and said, wow, what a big practice you have. And, I akin that sometimes to look at the big bad wolf and saying, my, what big eyes you have. Sometimes you're not sure what you're getting into with that question. You may open a whole Pandora's box of the 100 things that I'm thinking of every day, just to try to make sure that we remain profitable. That
Yeah.
elusive chase, which is a tough one.
My common answer to that used to be, here are the keys, good luck.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
Troy, as always, great conversation, and hope everybody out there got some good out of this. So if you have questions, Troy, where do they email you at?
They can email me at Troy at katsconsultants.com. Troy at katsconsultants.com. Send me your questions. If you've got something you want to hear us talk about specifically, send me a specific question, and you can be as specific as you want, or if you have 2 or 3 questions that tie in, we are more than happy to jump on here and give us, we'll go off like a shotgun. We'll talk for 20 minutes and tell and tell you everything that we might know about that topic at that time.
Absolutely. And as you've probably figured out, Troy and I can banter about anything. So,
oh yeah.
Troy, it's good to see you today. Look
Yep.
forward to our next time on the KC CHIROPulse podcast, brought to you by Kats Consultants, helping you keep your pulse on success. Be sure to check us out at katsconsultants.com. And from all of us here at Kats Consultants, stay informed and stay well adjusted. We'll see you next time.
See you later.